we're going to go ahead and get started if you guys want to grab a seat, and we'll just try to get you out of here on time. And if anybody has questions, we've got Greg up here. He's got the mic. We're going to go through a couple question and answers, just share some more information with you. And then if you have any questions that came up during the presentations that you wanted more clarification with, please go ahead and jump in, and Greg will give you the mic. We want to make sure the people on the webinar can hear. So just a couple things that we wanted to talk about before we start. So if you guys could provide an example of how your organization has integrated COML or COMT into training and exercises. You can fight over the mic.
What was the question again?
Provide an example of how your organization has integrated COML or COMT into training and exercises.
In Phoenix PD and Phoenix Fire, what we do is anytime we have a planned event, is we include the comm unit in that planned event so that they're able to get the exposure to what operations does and how they do it, and then also get them the exposure on how to do communications planning, use some of the assets that we have in the region. And in the case of larger events like Super Bowls and those kinds of things where you have an influx of outside agencies, it gives us the opportunity to use some of the assets in our TICP, so getting those communication caches out. And even if we don't need them, sometimes we'll set up, mobile repeaters or tactical level repeaters just for the exercise of doing it, to get them the exposure of doing those things.
With Massachusetts having smaller agencies, we work very closely. We have a mass COMU team that covers basically the statewide, and that includes partners from Fed, state. So we have resources from a lot of colleges that have their own communication systems and have resources that they bring to bear. What we do is then we plan, when we have planned events such as marathons, other types of events that take place, we can bring in those resources, and we actually have a list server as well as a text working group where we communicate on a day-to-day basis. So they're brought in during the planning process, help with the development of 205, and then we actually use them during the incident to do mentoring programs as well as filling out their task books as well.
I don't have much more to add other than the fact that we also use, with Phoenix PD, we use these planned events, significant incidents, as an opportunity for our succession planning, trying to get the training out to people that are going to be next in line, that need to get some exposure to doing some of these exercises. It also ensures that we have some built-in redundancies, too. If we have people that aren't able to make it or somebody gets sick or something, we have that line of succession in place.
Anybody in the audience have a question they want to ask? Okay. I'm going to do something. Okay, and just kind of going along with succession planning, do you guys have anything else to add with that, as far as have you done some of that within your organization, and how have you done that to try to make sure that you've got people coming up behind you that are able to do what you're doing?
One of the things that I do personally is I look out, working in a fire station, I watch guys, and what they do is for their hobbies and that kind of thing when they come to the station. I had a guy he was bringing in circuit boards, and he was building his own infrared camera system to watch his kid, baby, and that kind of stuff. And I go, hey, I might be able to use that guy, but it's taking those opportunities and asking those people, hey, are you interested in communications? What do you do? And come to find out, this guy that was doing this stuff, I said, hey, what did you do before? He goes, well, I was an engineer and project manager for APS before I got hired here. I go, why'd you come to the fire? He goes, well, I got tired of living in a cubicle. But he was an engineer level, and I could give that guy a schematic, and he could understand it. So now he's in our succession plan because of that. But it's keeping your eye on those people, and then using the programs that you have in place. We have a FEMA USAR program, using programs that you have in place to create opportunities to train these people and bring them up to speed so that you do have a succession plan.
Same thing. Through our COML and COMT programs, our training programs, we'll be able to, from a statewide perspective, cast out that net to find those people that could be that next generation. And they come from, you can't really overlook any area. We find some dispatchers that become very good tactical dispatchers that then can, take that next step up to become a COML. We find that on the COMT side, we do see that we have a very, very strong relationship between both the COMTs that we have and the private sector vendor side, so that we have an incident, that we have that ability and have that relationship and that reach back capability through whatever vendor you use to have those relationships, so that when you need to order something or make something happen, that there's a process that can take place and that you can facilitate those things. And those relationships take place ahead of time. But we're always on the lookout, as Mike has said, for new talent that's out there and find somebody that wants to take that step.
And we know that NIMS ICS training is important before you get into the COM training program. You have to go through several of the classes. And as far as within your organization, do you see that people are taking ICS classes throughout your organization, from foreign and civilian? Is everybody responsible for that, and is that followed during events in terms of the ICS structure?
On the PD side, I can tell you that it is followed throughout the entire organization. Again, not being in the technical background for the communication side, I encourage a lot of my peers. I do the same thing as far as looking for people from an operational perspective that may have an interest in learning what it is to be an ops chief or what it is to be involved in event planning. So from that regard, we still follow the same protocol. We do use the NIMS model for just about every event that we do. Again, it's because of its scalability and size, apt accordingly. But yes, we do the same thing on the PD side as far as trying to make sure everybody gets the same training, and we advertise when the training comes out. We send joint police and fire to the same training. Again, it creates that face-to-face connectivity so that people get to know one another. It gives them the chance to learn as they go. So that's kind of the model that we're using.
The ICS is the whole NIMS architecture. They have to understand, and that's the reason for COML and COMT, you have to be up to ICS 300, is how you fit into that overall architecture. And it starts with the whole planning process. As we've emphasized today, that especially during a planned event, it's critical to get them in there as early as possible, get them introduced to that operations section, because that's going to probably be the biggest portion of the whole NIMS architecture that you're going to support. It's important to have that relationship take place then, because what happens is that when the ICs and the command staff get to see who those COMLs are, when the incident takes place, and it's at 3 o'clock in the morning or the most adverse time that can happen, that trust factor is already there. Those chiefs, that command staff have already worked with those COMLs during the planning process. Opportunities, so the relationship takes place. The trust is there. They know each other ahead of time before the incident, and it just makes for an easier transition in a smooth incident.
Claudia? You're not helping.
I put one up there.
Oh, did you? Okay.
The question was from how do we set up for network infrastructure to accommodate radio systems? There was an understanding that there was extensive volunteers that assisted FEMA. Is that correct? And where did they come from? From what I saw from Sandy, and we were in a small snapshot area of Long Island out in Extreme. We really didn't get into New York City. Brian did. I had friends that were part of the incident management team that came from Massachusetts. What happens in any type of event that's that big, there are a lot of people that want to do good things, and those people come out of the woodwork. Especially a lot of people, they want to test new technologies. They want to say, my project was vetted at this type of an incident. And when someone comes in and says to some sort of a political ally or something that, I have this product and I can provide a mesh network or a backhaul or something and at no cost, that's what they want to hear, is they're getting a product at no cost. So there were lots of things that were taking place, and that's why there needs to be a coordination of what's going on at some point, whether it's through the state EOC or regional EOC, that these efforts are coordinated, because you could have 5 different organizations or 5 different projects that are trying to do the right thing, but if they're not coordinated properly, then they could conflict and have problems. Just as an example, Brian was working at the City Field, and the assets were broken down into 3 groups. There was county assets, there was city assets, and then the mayor had his own private assets on another area that was secured in another area. So you can see, any incident, politics are going to play into it, our job is to work through that and make it seamless as possible and make it work. But, you know, there are going to be people that are out there not undermining you. They think they're doing the right thing, but you need to work with them and try to figure out what's going on.
One thing I did want to throw out there to you, too, just so I don't forget, is we did leave an agenda for the meeting this afternoon. We have our PSIC meeting this afternoon. We have asked Mark to come back and talk a little bit more about how they built their COMT program up in terms of they have an app that they're using to share information. They share 205. They do a lot of work, and they've kind of brought their program up to where we wanted to share some of that to allow people to kind of get some ideas of what they're doing or maybe some directions we can take. Mark Watkins from AZPSIC is also going to do a presentation on the codes and the Bullfrog SOPs and the other work we've done with the video. So we'll have some more on that this afternoon. Here we go. So does anybody else have questions? Let's hear. Al?
Like on the Yarnell Hill question that you had, there was an awful lot of other agencies that you talked about for a few minutes. Vice President Biden was there. I believe that for their own radio frequencies, service, FCI, all of those. And did you get a chance to see those 205 forms, and did you get a chance to look at any improvements or problems with frequencies?
You know, as far as a vice presidential visit, you know, I personally didn't get to see anything. But anytime a president or vice president or any other dignitary shows up like that, it kind of disrupts what you're doing, because especially when a presidential visit, because they have black Suburbans, and for some reason there's a communications hole wherever that Suburban goes. So it's good to anticipate those problems, you know, but there were a lot of other agencies there, and, you know, like I said, there was a large number of fire agencies there as far as support of fire service, but fortunately most of them were on VHF, and most of them were simple to fix by telling them to go to the State Fire Mutual Aid channel, which, you know, gets back to, you know, that pre-planning and programming radios correctly and having those interoperability channels in the radio before the incident happens.
You know, just to add on to that, part of one of the squads that I oversee is our Dignitary Protection Group out of the Homeland Defense Bureau. And whenever we interact with Secret Service or any other governmental entity, typically we end up pairing one of our personnel, one of our detectives directly with one of theirs. Similar to what Mike was talking about earlier, is one of the options, being able to pair personnel up so that you maintain not only face-to-face connectivity, but you can also identify what frequencies they're using if their plan changes, so that we can adjust accordingly. So we may not necessarily have the same radio frequency, but our folks are there so that we can interact with them if needed.
Yeah.
The conference has been muted.
I think we have another question in the back.
Yeah, it's not so much a question as a thank you. My name is Tim Fletcher. I'm a lieutenant with the Prescott Police Department, and I worked early on with Brian during the whole Yarnell Hill firefighter tragedy, and thank goodness there was people like Brian and other folks that had some of this experience behind them, because I did not. Coming from a small agency, we didn't have the resources or the background or the knowledge, and this thing grew by leaps and bounds over that first week. And when I talked to Brian's like, yeah, we've got a communications guy I can bring up. He can make these guys all be able to talk to each other. To me, it made it sound like, oh, this is going to be an easy thing. I never even thought about the fact that us switching the route last minute on them had that much of an effect on Mike. And then when they got up here, they said, hey, all you got to do is ask, and he can stay up there and help you guys. So I asked, and Mike kind of had anticipated, and you were talking about be prepared for that first 48. Mike had thrown a bag in his truck and knew he was pretty much going to stay there with us and helped us throughout the rest of that week with the different 19 services and transports that we had to do. And we couldn't have done it without these guys. So I just wanted to take the chance to thank them personally.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, we have 5 minutes, so what I asked you guys to do is just give maybe 2 things to takeaways for you. What are the most important things they wanted to share, just to say, these are the things we want you guys to walk away with as far as what we've been talking about today.
Again, from an operational side of the house, I can't emphasize enough the importance of pre-planning and bringing your COML to the table at the very beginning. Those 2 pieces will get you well on your way to opening dialogue to ensure that everybody's getting their needs met long before your final operational plan is completed, so that when you finally hit boots to the ground on game day, you've actually got everybody in support of your plan.
I'm going to pretty much echo what Brian just said, because if that COML is familiar with what you're doing, how you do it, what your requirements are before game day, then once the thing happens, they're able to anticipate what your needs are and provide the services that you need.
As far as COMLs and COMTs, it kind of plays in this whole day-to-day interoperability and the ability to communicate, and it starts with just face-to-face conversations on a day-to-day basis. If you struggle with a planned event, then you're not going to be able to probably handle an incident. So it just starts with face-to-face sit-downs, groups, people, common interests. Starts at a local, regional, and builds up to statewide initiatives. But it's people that communicate on a day-to-day basis, or at least monthly, on similar issues. What do you see for problems? Those face-to-face relationships mean a lot.
I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Mike's always trying to emphasize that I have no idea how equipment works, and I need you to stay off in the corner. That's what he's showing. I want to thank everybody for coming out today, especially all the folks who've joined us online. And hopefully you were able to hear and participate and see everything throughout the event today. We very much appreciate your thoughts. We will be sending an email out to everyone after this meeting with the presentations that were available, as well as electronic copies of the handouts, particularly for those folks that were on the phone. As you notice, many of the presentations had links in them throughout there, and so you can just click on the hyperlinks in those presentations. So if you have not already, please make sure you sign in on one of the sign-in sheets on the outside there. And I also want to invite you to our Public Safety Communications Advisory Commission meeting this afternoon from 1 to 3. The PSIC is the body in Arizona that sets the high-level strategic plan and policy for the state and improving interoperable communications. We have a couple of the commissioners that have joined us here today, so I very much appreciate Michael, obviously, and David as well from Tucson for joining us. So with that, thank you all very much, and have a great day.